Shalom Aleichem. It's Tanya Inside Out, chapters 48, 49, 50. The penultimate class next week. Well, I'm going to be away next week, but the Tanya is composed of the first section of Tanya is composed of 53 prakim, gun. It's called gun prakim. And we're up to chapters 48, 49, 50. So we've done good, guys. Done really well. Baruch Hashem. We're finishing up the section which is really about kavanah of the mitzvah, and the whole sefer until now has been, well, until chapter 41 really, or say chapter 48 has been really driving home the importance of the actual Maisa mitzvah, doing the mitzvah. And then he changed gears around chapter 38. And now he's just spent a lot of time getting into how important the kavanah of the mitzvah is. But never forget that the Maisa mitzvah is the ikar. We've been speaking about this a lot lately, and it's important to remember. I mean, we could talk about this for a long time, but just the most important thing to remember is that you can have all the kavanahs in the world. Yeah, you could be going out your head for hours and hours, immersed in divine love and warm, bright light of the Yichud Hashem, yeah? Thinking and meditating on the mitzvah tefillin. If you didn't actually strap those black leather things around your arm and on your head, or they were puzzle, chas v'shalom, yeah, then the mitzvah tefillin wasn't niskayim. And it's really amazing because it comes out that you can fulfill the mitzvah of mezuzah just as well as Moshe Rabbeinu can fulfill the mitzvah of mezuzah. That's an amazing idea on the level of Maisa. Now, when it comes to kavanah, yeah, you couldn't begin to imagine what would be going through Moshe Rabbeinu's inner world when he's attaching a mezuzah to a door. But on the level of Maisa, he cannot attach a mezuzah to a door better than you can. I mean, maybe he has a better hammer or something like that. I don't know. Maybe you have a better hammer. But the point is that's the equalizing factor, and that is everything. So the Rebbe said earlier on that the mitzvah is called the bird, like a bird without wings, and the avanira, the wings. So what's the ikka? What's the toffel? What's the primary? What's the secondary? Obviously, the bird is primary and the wings are secondary. The wings lift the bird up. But the creation of the bird comes about through the actual Maisa mitzvah, through doing the actual mitzvah. It's binary. The mitzvah is binary, meaning you either did it or you didn't. In regards to the levels of love and fear, it's endless gradations. But when it comes to the actual Maisa mitzvah, you either did it or you didn't do it. It's very clear. It's like, and it's very important to just be binary in everything that we're with our marriages. Yeah. In regards to once you're in the marriage, yeah, once you're taking the marriage for granted, there's endless gradations of pain and pleasure, of love and respect, of all different things. But marriage itself is binary. You're either married or you're not married. There's no levels to that. And we have to constantly bind ourselves to that. I can't stress that enough, literally. If you can bind yourself, I don't know if we said this before, someone the other day said, my marriage has gone flat. My marriage is flat. So if you're connected to the experience of the marriage, then you'd be like, oy vey. Oh, that's terrible. But if you're connected to the reality of marriage, you'd be like, wow, you're married? Oh, okay, it's flat. Okay, we'll work that out. But you're married? That's binary. That's the foundation. That's the essential. So even though we're talking about all these levels of love and fear and everything, at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we are grounded primarily, or at least firstly, with the actual Maisa mitzvah, and then everything else is very important. Don't get me wrong, but we always have to work from the basis of the fact that we're connected to that binary aspect. Either you're married, you're not married. He's your son, he's not your son. She's your mother, she's not your mother. Get connected to that binary. It's not even part of the relationship, it is the relationship. That's like the foundation. And then you've got all the experiences within that. But Kozman, we stay connected to that actual foundation. Everyone's heard of that idea, Gums a Yatavor, this too shall pass. You heard this before? It was a ring. People said it in the name of Shlomo Melech, but it wasn't said in the name. I think it's from it's a Goyish thing, but it's still very important. Yeah, it's brought in Yiddish Sfarim, but the original Makor, I don't know where it's from. Gamze Yatavor. There was a king who asked the wise man to help him deal with the difficult times, get through the difficult times, and appreciate the good times. So the wise man gave him a ring that said on it, "This too shall pass," which enhances the good times and helps you get through the bad times. But that's really predicated on this idea that you're connected to the binary nature of the marriage. Let's just take marriage, for example. You could transpose that with any of your relationships. If you're just connected to the fact that you're married, that's the most important thing. Now, Gums a Yavor. Okay, so it's difficult right now. You'll get through it. Okay? Or it's amazing right now. Enjoy it while it lasts. But if you're not connected to the foundation, then you with me? One understands what I'm saying? Very, very important idea. Can't stress that enough. So that was just an introduction. So now, okay. We're really going to talk about HaShem's Mesirus Nefesh. The way the Tanya basically describes it in chapters 58 and 59 is that Hashem was Moise Nefesh, yeah, to allow us to be. He had to give up some of his infinity to allow us to be. That's called Tzimtzum. So there's two levels, basically. What's called immanent and transcendent. There's the level, so to speak, of Hashem that fills the worlds, and the level of Hashem, so to speak, that transcends the worlds. In the Lashon of they say it's Lashon of Kabbalah, but I really only seen these ideas in Tanya. It's called Male Koalmin, an or Male, a light that fills. We just call it Male Koalmin. It fills all the worlds. The Sovev Koalmin, which means it surrounds. Sovev means to surround, or it surrounds all the worlds. So it's called an or Male and an or Sovev, a filling light and a surrounding light. Now, it's really simple to understand, actually, although I'm going to give this analogy that makes it really, really, it's a very deep idea, but it's really actually simple to understand. Without this analogy, it's really difficult to understand. Okay, so I'm just going to cut to the chase, and because I could draw this out for a long time, but I'm just let's try and get this clear. Okay, you've got people here have got a 3-year-old kid, Berech. You remember what a 3-year-old kid's like, okay? And you've got a 10-year-old kid, or you know what a 10-year-old kid's like, yeah, or you can imagine. And then there's you. You've got a 3-year-old kid, a 10-year-old kid, Shalom Aaron, and you, okay? Elon Musk walks into your front room. You're sitting there with your 2 kids, your 3-year-old and your 10-year-old, and Elon Musk or Donald Trump, some big, when he was president, a big person. Yeah, let's say Elon Musk. Yeah, he's got, he's the richest man in the world, which basically makes him one of the most powerful men in the world. Yeah. What's the difference between the reactions? So I'll talk from I'll give you my kids. Yeah. My 3-year-old, I'll say, and the 3-year-old, I'm going to say to him, this is Elon Musk, the richest man in the world. Yeah. My 3-year-old is like, well, did he bring some candy, or, is there, my 10-year-old is like, well, I wonder what car he's got. did someone drive him here? You know, and I'm sitting there thinking, wow, this man, this man can just say something and change the economy of the world, basically. Yeah. You with me? So we got the same man standing in the room, but there's a different aspect of that man entering the 3-year-old, the 10-year-old, and me. Now he's really much bigger than I know as well, yeah, but go with the analogy. So the 3-year-old can just take a teeny weeny little bit of Elon Musk. Like how could he really buy the sweet shop? Yeah, really. He could just take a teeny little bit, yeah. My 10-year-old takes a little bit more. Like what? He's got like 100 cars, yeah. And I'm sitting there again, I take a little bit more. Like, wow, he must, etc. Yeah. The bit of him, of Elon Musk, that goes into my 3-year-old, the bit more, but still a little bit that goes into my 10-year-old, and the little bit more that goes into me, that's called the Mala Koalmin. That's the filling light. Elon Musk himself, who I can't fathom, that's called the Soivev Koalmin. That's the element in the Moshe, that's the element of Hashem that the world can't take. Okay, so we'll plug it in. Okay, now we've got that clear. Yeah, it's very simple to understand. So we've got 4 levels in creation. We've got inanimate, plant life, animal, human. Okay. Now we're going to say something really, really profound here. But the defining, let's start from the bottom. Okay, so inanimate just is nothing. It's just is. Okay, that's like the 3-year-old, so to speak, even less. No hasaga. Then you've got the plant life, which receives less, so it receives more than the inanimate. What separates plant life from inanimate? Growth, which includes reproduction. So the difference between inanimate and plant is, in one word, we call it growth, but like I said, that includes reproduction. Okay, the difference between, this is the life force. The difference between the life force of the vegetable and the animal, in one word, is called movement, which includes behavior, emotions, but the one word is movement. Okay, and then what's the one word that differentiates humans from animals? Medaber, intellect. So the biggest revelation of God in the world is human intellect. In the natural world, not without prophecy and miracles and stuff. But the biggest revelation of God in the natural world is human intellect. Then there's level below that is movement. That's animals. The level below that is growth. That's plants. And the level below that is just being. That's the inanimate. That's the concept of Malak Oalmi. Now, this is a very important idea. Is that, see, it's a little bit misleading to call it Malak Oalmi. It fills the world because you think there's this thing, and then there's this light of God that fills it. But the first level, the level of the inanimate, when we say that it fills the world, it means it causes it to actually have it has physicality. That's the lowest level, that it's got some kind of mamashas to it, some kind of chomer, some kind of physicality. Okay, that's the inanimate. There's more. The plant can receive more of Hashem, and then the animal receives more of Hashem, and then the human being receives the most of Hashem. But all of that is just analogous to the 3-year-old, the 5-year-old, the 10-year-old, and me looking at Elon Musk, lahavdil, when really there's so much more. When I say so much more, it's infinitely more. The bit of Hashem that doesn't fit into the world, so to speak, is not just a lot more like the difference between 1 and a billion, whatever. It's the difference between 1 and infinity. It's of a different realm. It's just not compatible with this world. It would obliterate this world. This world would just be drawn back to infinity if it was to touch that level. So that's the 2 levels. That's called or Male and or Soviv. Is that clear? Because it's a really important, that's a really important idea to get. If you got that clear, we did good today. It was, you could go to bed now. That was already worth waking up for. Hopefully there's more, but that in itself was worth waking up for. So that's the difference between or Soviv and or Male. Now that the Rebbe didn't give that example of Elon Musk. The Rebbe gave a different example, a completely different example, which I'll give you over quickly because it's really profound. And a lot of the modern day spiritual teachers, especially in the Goyish world, speak of a very similar mashal, but the Rebbe said it's better. Imagine an object in your mind, okay? We've done this before, but personally, you don't have to do this. But if you close your eyes and imagine an object in your mind, now that object has an external element, it has an internal element, it has a very internal element, whatever it is. But then there's the mind in which it exists. That's analogous to the Or Sovev and the Or Male. We exist as an image in the mind of Hashem. That's a very important, we spoke about this before, just as a side point, just to remember this. If you can imagine that image in your mind, and then you realize, let go of that image, and it's gone, that's how you know that Hashem is involved in your life. Because if Hashem wasn't, just like you're causing that image to exist in your mind, kol rega v'rega, if Hashem was to stop causing you to be this second, you would just vanish and everything about you would vanish. That's a very amazing thing to think about. That means you weren't just created like 40 odd years ago and you're just, you're still here. He right now at this moment, just like when you've got your eyes closed and you're imagining a Cadillac in your mind. Yeah, the minute you stop thinking about that Cadillac, it's just gone. It's not there anymore. That's how we exist in the mind of the Creator. He is constant. That's what you say. Kol rega v'rega machaya olam. He's machaya the whole. He's machaya the world every moment. We mean it. We mean it like literally, meaning that if he was to remove his creative, intentional power of causing you to be, you wouldn't be. So therefore, he really needs you. He really wants you. He really wants you. That's just a side point. But anyway, so the place in which that image exists in your mind, which is really you in a sense, that you'd call the Sovev Koalmin. And the actual object itself, how that's made, that you'd be calling the Male Koalmin. Now, just as a really important point, the Sovev Koalmin, the infinity, Hashem's infinity, so to speak, is everywhere, always. And it's really interesting because in modern physics, we understand now that really you're composed of, I think it's something like 13 nines and then a 6 of empty space. Meaning that the empty space of the atoms that compose you is so vast that you are basically not even basically just empty space. You are exclusively empty space. And they'll find out in the end that that other little bit is also not real.
It's discussed in a great book called Reclaiming Sanity.
Yeah, yeah, it says that, yeah. Very good. So I wrote it's a known thing that the actual amount of space, the actual amount of physicality in an atom is I gave a model. It's like this. If you take an atom, which is a basic atom is composed of a nucleus, which is a proton and a neutron, and an electron that, let's just say, it whizzes round. It's more complicated than that, but let's just say it whizzes round. If you were to scale up that nucleus to the size of a grain of rice, yeah? Now, to keep everything in the aspect ratio, yeah, you size up the nucleus to a grain of rice. Now, you put 2 football fields, 100-yard football fields, one, and when one finishes, you make it begin again, yeah? So you've got 2 football fields back to back, yeah? Then so from where the 200 yards, where the goalposts are, the 2 farthest goalposts, draw a circle around that whole area. Imagine how big that circle is, yeah? And then you put the grain of rice in the middle, right in the middle. That's how much space there is in an atom. So we see that the Sovev, even in modern physics, tells us this, that the Sovev is here. Hashem's infinity, his infinity that would obliterate the world if it was revealed to us, is here. Absolutely. It's the space in which all this stuff exists. I love that. These ideas are to be thought about a lot. Anyway, okay, so that's the idea. That's basically chapter 48. He really goes to town on describing those 2 ideas. And what he's basically saying is that Hashem is really having to put himself to the side. So he explains now we just entered into 49, that the Tzimtzum basically breaks down into 3 major Tzimtzumim. We call them Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. Atzilus is already not that much. I mean, Libid the Emes, it's like the most Matzunzam. But the way we're speaking about it here is it's like so unconstricted that it's not really spoken about. The real Tzimtzum begins from Atzilus to Bria. Then there's another huge quantum jump from Bria to Yetzirah, and then another huge quantum jump from Yetzirah to Asiya. And those Tzimtzumim are basically Hashem putting himself to the side so that we can exist with free will, so that we can choose him. And it says that that is coming from Hashem's deep love for us. And the Gemara quotes a phrase, and it's difficult for me to understand because this really sounds like fear to me, but it says, Ava doichekas abasa, meaning that love pushes away the flesh, meaning that people sacrifice for love. And it's Hashem's deep love for us that he sacrificed his infinity. He brought himself, he removed, so to speak, he really put himself aside so that we can be. Because if he didn't put himself aside, we would just be swallowed up in his echad. So the Tanya says that Hashem actually put himself to the side. And this is how the Tanya brings it back to practicality. He says, and just like Hashem put himself to the side for his love for us, so too you should put yourself aside for your love for him. Meaning, go outside of your comfort zone for him. Do things that are not so easy for you. Don't just go with your nature. I was talking to a guy that I'm close with who's by nature a very loving, kind person. And I was saying to him, it's a bit of a problem because he he's in a situation, and I'm saying to him, like, you basically, it appears that he's actually a very, when you think about it deeply, he can't do something that he doesn't want to do. He literally, if he doesn't want to do it, he can't do it. But he's in a real problem because he's such a nice guy that he does such nice things for people the whole time. So he doesn't realize that he's deeply selfish. Because helping people and being nice is so much of his nature. And the only way you know that is because when there's something that he needs to do that he doesn't want to do, he just can't do it, literally. That's called selfish. That's called deeply selfish. Even though he's helping people the whole time, and he's very trustworthy, etc., etc. But when it's something that he doesn't want to do, that doesn't go with his nature, just can't do it. You hear what I'm saying? So that's actually a deep level of selfishness, and it's very difficult because he doesn't know it, because he's always helping people out. Because you assume that a selfish person is like, leave me alone and don't do, and I'll do you. No, selfish just means you can't go outside of yourself. Now, if yourself is very nice and kind and loving, well, your selfishness is going to be expressed in other things, like the fact that you can't do this thing that you need to do for whatever reason it is. So that's really where he's going with this. That's where the Rebbe is taking us with this, is that is really where the avodas Hashem is when it's taka difficult. That's really where the avodas Hashem is. That's really where the relationship is, becomes tangible. When it's not your nature and the Shem requires it of you. And you will see that happens over and over and over again. He will constantly test you with things that are outside of your nature that you have to come through for him for. And the Rebbe says it's just like he put himself aside for you, because if he didn't put himself aside, you wouldn't have a place to live in. So he put himself aside for you. So the Rebbe says, just like the face is reflected in the water, as we spoke about previous weeks, so too return the favor. Put yourself aside for him. Now, I want to there's an amazing thing that he says that you could take very, very wrongly. That's when you understand it correctly, it's amazing. If you understand it wrongly, it's terrible. He says the term mafkir. Yeah, you know what mafkir means? To be mafkir, to make hefker. Yeah, to make hefker. She says you should basically make yourself hefker. He says you should be mafkir your health, your money, and then he goes on and says your wife and your children. To be mafkir your wife and your children. Now, I live in a world where there's people who don't take their kasuba particularly seriously, yeah, or they there's the world that I live in. It's possible that the men here aren't funding their families in the way that they do in America, yeah. So when we hear the word to be mafki your wife and children, it sounds like let them fend for themselves. You have to be involved in your avodas Hashem, and let your wife and kids be fend for themselves. That's not the way to understand it. What he's saying is the exact opposite. And it's in the Lashon mafkir, meaning make them ownerless. They don't belong to you. That's an amazing, amazing idea. Your wife doesn't belong to you. Your children don't belong to you. You are responsible for them, meaning don't take ownership. Don't feel that you have an ownership there. You have a responsibility. And then when you realize, when you make them ownerless, meaning that you give up their ownership to Hashem, now you really have to look after your wife and children. Because it's not about you, it's about Hashem. You with me? It flips on its head, Lagamre. When they belong to you, there's only so far. It's like if you're working for Olam Haba, yeah? If the reason why you're in Yiddishkeit is for Olam Haba, then you could turn around every now and again and say, you know what? I'll miss out on this little bit of Olam Haba. Let me have a break for a minute, yeah? Or this Avey was worth a little bit of Gehenna. Yeah, you can say such a thing. So when it's about you, that could be said, to varying madrigas. But what about when it's not about you? You're working for the Bonus Shlolem. You're working for the Bonus Shlolem. You don't have the opportunity. You don't have it's not yours to say, you know what, I'm going to take it easy right now. That's the idea of being mafkir, the wife and the kids, is remember that they belong to the Rabbeinu Shlolem. And you're on a shlichus to take sterling care of them. Mamash. It puts in a whole different league. You're not looking after your family now, you're looking after HaShem's family. Like we've said many times, when your parents come for a meal, if just a regular Thursday afternoon, yeah, you might make yourself a piece of bread with some cheese or something like that, yeah? But your parents come over for a meal, and then all of a sudden you've got out the dishes and you're cooking and you put something nice together. Because you don't care, you can only work so hard for yourself. But when you're when it's somebody else's thing, then you can really push further. And when that somebody else is the bonus shloilem, so it's a very healthy attitude to have, to know that your wife and children, we're aspiring to realize that we are shluchim for the bonus shloilem. We're here to mamash provide for our wife and children, to mamash help them for his sake. They don't belong to us. That was the side point. So I'm just going to, I haven't, in this whole series, I haven't really read anything from the text, but I just want to read a little bit from the text right now, because I couldn't, it's just, he says it so perfectly. So he basically summarized the purpose of the whole thing here. In Mikol Makom, in any case, Lo Yatze Dechevasa Beheho Ve'Ian Levadoi. Now he's tying together all of the kavanas that all of having kavana for mitzvah. He says that you're not yotzi or chiyuv with just thinking exclusively. You have to speak out the words. Kedei lahamshich, so as to draw down or ein sof baruch hu lamata, to bring down the or ein sof baruch hu down ad nefesh achiyunis, into the living animal soul, the human soul, shoichenes bedama adam, that lives in the blood of man. Hamischave medoimen soimech v'chai, exists from inanimate plant life and animal. Kedei la'alois kulan laHashem, so as to bring all of it up to Hashem. Im kol ha'olam kuloi, with all of the world, uchlalan b'yehudoi v'oiro yizbrach, and to make them merged with the unity and the light of God. Asher yoel la'arez l'darim b'chinas gilui, that is shining in the world and to the inhabitants of the world on the level of Gilui, like we said, the Male Kwalmin, the Nigla Kavoid Hashem, and so that it will shine to the world on a level of revelation. That's what we're trying to do. Our mitzvah's there, and this is why we have to speak out Shema. We have to put on tefillin. We have to do the mitzvahs, because we're drawing down the Rabbeinu Sholem into the lowest level. If it's just the machshavas and it's just the emotions, that doesn't bring it down. It needs to come down to the voice. It needs to come down to the hands. And then we shine in this world, and to the inhabitants of this world, the revelation of Hashem, the nigla kavoid Hashem, and Hashem, the covet of Hashem will be revealed, v'ro'u kol basa, and all of flesh will see. These are very important. Shazeu tachlis hishtalshlus kol ha'olamas. This is the purpose of the downward chain-like thing of all the olamas of the tzimtzumim. Yes, kvoid Hashem male kol ha'aretz halazoi. Dafka b'chinas gilui. That Hashem should become down. The covenant of Hashem should come down and fill this world on a level of revelation. To transform the darkness to light, and bitterness to sweetness. And this is the tachlis of a man in his avodah. That is what we should be thinking about. When we're doing mitzvahs, it's not about Olam Haba. It's not about feeling close to God. It's not about meaning and purpose. We got a job to do. This is everything else. You want to have those thoughts as well, you can do that. But the foundation of the whole thing is we are working for the Boinah Shloim, and he needs us to bring his light from above to down. And that's what he says. This is the tachlis of man in his avodah, to bring down godly light into this world. Okay. So we'll finish off now. This really is a whole show in itself, but we'll do it quite quickly. And it's probably the least relevant in a sense. The actual love that we're going to talk about now is the least relevant of all the other loves we spoke about, because this is really for the tzaddikim. But again, at the end, he ties it back and he gives us something very practical to walk away with. But the love of the tzaddikim, and this comes from basically distancing yourself from any sin whatsoever, which means becoming utterly selfless. Sin is always a cause of you're taking yourself too seriously. When there's a stira between what you want and what he wants, Yisborach, that's the place where a sin can happen. A sin means you're doing something that Hashem doesn't want. So why are you doing it? There's only one reason, because you want to do it. So that's so we're talking about a man or woman who has ascended that level. So that's why I'm saying it's not for us. This isn't for us, but we'll discuss it anyway. And he talks about it's a love that's actually on the left side. As we know, love is connected to chesed, which is on the right side, and fear is connected to gevurah, it's on the left side. But this love actually comes from the left side. And it's a love that basically the person who has this love just wants to merge and to be lost in the Ribono Shel Olam. And it's a visceral love where I suppose it can actually be quite painful. He says, he gives you three psukim that are it leads up. So the first one is Samel Chanafshi, my soul thirsts. Yeah. Then he calls it Choiles Ava, lovesick. And then finally, and this is the love, Kalos and Nefesh. It's you just want to merge back with him, and you don't want to be anymore. You just don't want to be. Now, it comes out that you don't even want to do mitzvahs. You just want to merge back into him. You don't want anything to do with it. In a sense, it's a very selfish. It's paradoxical because it's selfish in that you want, but it's selfless in that you want to not be. So it's I don't know what you call it. Yeah, it's an ultimately selfless love. But the goal, the point of it, the objective of this love is to just not be anymore. It's to merge back with him and to just not exist anymore. That's what this love is looking for. Okay, so he says, and this is from the Sefer Yetzirah, and this is how he turns it into something that's actually very practical for us. It says, Im ratz libecha Shuv le'echad. If your heart runs, return to one. And that's describing, this is called Rotza v'shuv. Anyone's heard of this idea, Rotza v'shuv? Running and returning? It's in Yechezkel, it talks about the malachim coming up and down, whatever, yeah? Rotzu means running to him, and shuv means returning to here. Now listen how it's beautiful how he puts this now. So he brings the Mishnah that says, the Mishnah's in Avos, at the end of the 4th perek. It says, Al korcha ata, one second, Al korcha ata noitza, against your will you're formed. Al korcha ata noilad, against your will you're born. Al korcha ata chai, against your will you live. Al korcha ata meis, and against your will you die. Okay? It's all against your will. So basically, the Rebbe says like this. You have this is, again, we're talking to the tzaddik, but listen to what we walk away with. The answers to the tzaddik, yeah? You're pining to merge with the Shem. All you want to do is get out of this world, leave this world, and merge back with Rabbonu Sholem. That's very nice. Okay? But Shuv le'echad, go back, come back down into this world and serve. Because you were created to serve. Comes out that the service is completely selfless. All that tzaddik wants to do is mamash leave his body and just not be anymore, just merge back like the fire, like the small flame merging back into the bonfire. That's the feeling that the true tzaddik has inside of himself. He just doesn't want to be here. He just wants to merge. He just wants to get out of here. The answer to him is, that's lovely, now go and serve. So, al korcha atachai, against your will you live. Meaning, if it was up to you, you wouldn't be. You would just be merged back with Hashem. So against your will you live. Go back to earth and serve. And then just when you get too comfortable, it says, al korcha ata meis. If you get too comfortable in this world and you forget, it says, and against your will you die. Meaning, remember, don't forget that really what you want to do is merge. Don't get too comfortable in this world. That's the eights that we walk away with. So al korcha atachai, meaning you're longing to merge back with the Rabbonu Sholem, so against your will you live. But then what happens maybe is you get comfortable, you get a nice car, you get a nice house, maybe get a second house, third house, build a little community, etc. Now you're really enjoying that you're alive. Al korcha ata meis. Don't forget you're going to die against your will. You're here for the Rabbonu Sholem. That's what we're here for. We're here for the Rabbonu Sholem. We're not here for ourselves. We're here to serve. We're here to serve him. So that's how the Rebbe ties it. Al korcha atachai, you're living against your will, meaning really your inner desire is to merge with God. And al korcha ata meis, meaning you're going to die against your will, meaning this world is not here as an end unto itself. You're here to serve. And that's the end of chapter 50. After Hashem. Should be zocher to serve. Any questions? Tov.
No,